I did see some new faces to me, so I'm going to quickly go through the beginning. We do like to introduce who we are and what we do to anybody who's new to us. So we're NYC Emergency Management. Any long timers might remember us as OEM, or the Office of Emergency Management, but we rebranded about 7 or 8 years ago. And we help New Yorkers before, during, and after emergencies with preparedness, education, response, and we do dabble a bit in recovery too. So in terms of response and recovery, this slide here is a picture of the fire department, actually probably the police department, and New York City Emergency Management and other city departments responding to the scene of a large fire in a multi-family building. So our folks are in the branded jackets at the forefront, and our city CICs, or citywide incident coordinators, are always on hand to help coordinate the response to pretty much any big complaint in the city. We call them activations or emergencies. You can kind of take your pick, but it's really important to have someone coordinating it, because there are many, many players to any given large scale incident, and it gets very complex very fast. So on to the fun stuff, educating the public. That's what I do. This slide shows a bunch of happy people in some of our branded Serving Our Communities t-shirts, and our CERT member in green to the left of your screen, with a big banner, some balloons, and some signage in the background. And this is probably the Disability Pride Fair. So we like to do that when they schedule that. And actually, we're going to be doing Manhattan's Pride too this year. So we're super excited to be joining that again. We have 3 primary programs in the Community Engagement Bureau, and that is the bureau in which I serve. The first one is Ready New York, and that's individual preparedness. The second one is Community Preparedness, where I'm happy to say there are multiple networks now on Staten Island participating. Yay, Staten Island. And what we do in community preparedness is build the capacity of local organizations and networks to help the community prepare for, respond to, and recover from an emergency. And the last major program in the Community Engagement Bureau are our CERT volunteers. They undergo an 11-session training program that includes basic first aid, line management, search and rescue, which is really big on Staten Island, the search and rescue, and they help out at large scale events in the community. And they also do Ready New York trainings too. Now we get into the nitty gritty of flooding. So this isn't meant to be like a comprehensive NYC overview. This is more based for community level. And so I wanted to really personalize the slide. So this is my very own photo from my very own block in Brooklyn, Windsor Terrace. It's the end of my block, and you can see it's actually a photograph that's split in 2. So the top looks like to be about a third is a catch basin or storm drain covered with leaves and garbage. And at the bottom is what it looks like after you remove the leaves and garbage from the top of your storm drain. So I am the obsessive clearer of the catch basin on my street. I am very lucky that I have another neighbor who does that. And then in the winter, when there's snow, we also spend time clearing the pathways across the street so that wheelchairs and strollers can get through. And I also like to keep the catch basins clear in the winter too. So no surprise to anyone who's been following what we do. The number one thing we recommend that you do before an extreme flooding incident is to sign up for Notify NYC. And I'm going to get into the weeds with that on a couple of slides up. Also, to make an emergency plan, which means what are you going to do if you can't return or stay in your home? I'm not going to get into great detail on that because I believe that we're doing something a little bit later this week. If you're driving in transit, listen to transit impacts and never drive or walk through standing water. And the first bullet on this slide is actually from IDA, and I stole it from the department, from DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, also known as NYC Water if you're on Twitter. Stay home during expected intense storms. Don't drive or order delivery services, because there's an infamous video of some poor deliverista on a bike schlepping through the storm floodwaters of Ida. So what I say is, hold off on the Chipotle, make an omelet or have a bowl of cereal, and you'll be kind to your fellow humans who have to work. Know your flood risk. I'm going to get into that a little bit. Know your stormwater risk. I'm going to get into both those things. Protect your property. There's a great handout from DEP that I'll send on to Michelle after this. Get flood insurance. And that's also another website that I'm not going to get into, but I'll attach that as well. Clear the catch basins. You have a lovely visual image, courtesy of me there. There's some suggestions on what to do if you want to conserve water. I actually have some app from the DEP. I think it's still in beta mode, but and I use it to know when I shouldn't run my dishwasher, shouldn't run my washing machine, or even take a shower. Certain storms and certain events, they recommend that you don't take a shower. I also use my common sense. If it's pouring rain, I don't run my my washing machine. I hold off until the rain has stopped. Okay, so there we go on the water. Now, this is my Staten Island slide. So Dr. Benemoff, this might look familiar to you, but Dr. Benemoff and I are huge fans of the NYC stormwater flood map. And I took a screenshot of Eaton Place, which is in the Bull's Head region, which I visited right after Ida. You can see this screenshot is from the 2080 sea level rise and extreme stormwater flood. So like the most extreme scenario, right? Why they put the year 2080, it's because of that's, how this is going to be affected by the projections for the worst case scenario of sea level rise. What we want to point out to you is that this 2080 is here. 2080 is now. 2080 was 2021. So this shot on the right was in the Staten Island Advance on the 2nd of September, and that is also Eaton Place. So you can see it actually looks like the projection from the stormwater risk map. Sobering, to say the least, and dramatic, yes. So I'm going to get into that in a little bit. So stormwater, you might have also heard of it as referred to as cloudburst, extreme rainfall. It really doesn't matter. Intense rainfall, we have a lot of terminology to describe it. In this case, it did accompany a hurricane, but that it wasn't particularly a coastal flood event, right? That's something that's a little bit different. What this tells me when I look at this slide and when I look at Eaton Place on Staten Island, it tells me that every neighborhood is at risk. We are all at risk from extreme stormwater. And that's the point that I try to express to the neighborhoods that I'm going to. And then I'm going to use my own self as an example from my experience last summer. No hurricane, just a bad extreme rainfall event, maybe a cloudburst. Cloudburst kind of opened up over my neighborhood in Brooklyn in August and flooded most of the basements in the surrounding neighborhood of us. People that had never flooded before with a rain event, hurricanes, myriad storms, never. We flooded on a storm that was barely a blip on the news. So that is my anecdotal, non-scientific expression of why we're all need to pay attention to these maps. This one, most of Staten Island, oh, I could maybe play that if I optimize my video. So, know your zone is, of course, our very probably not famous coastal evacuation zone for a hurricane, right? So I wanted to put, again, a comparison. These are not the same neighborhoods, but this is a comparison of two parts of Know Your Zone that are Staten Island focus. So the image on the right, which encompasses all the hurricane evacuation zones of the Know Your Zone campaign, is of course South Beach. The image on the left is near Eaton Place. Eaton Place is located, and I picked the pumping station. So Dr. Benimoff, I'm sure you know the pumping station that caused so much trouble over there in Bull's Head is out of the coastal evacuation zone, but I understand that there are several pumping stations that are sort of offline with DEP that cause a variety of problems during an extreme flooding event. So it's always good to know where you are in relation to those and understand what you can do to mitigate the effects of extreme flooding. I'm not going to play this video, but if we have time, I'll play it later. So one of the big changes we did since Ida, and that I encourage everybody on Staten Island to use the Notify NYC app and activate basement apartment notifications, especially if you're in a group that sends out notifications, like you're the COAD or Project Hospitality, or we have a couple of other networks on Staten Island, because we will send out a special notification for basement apartment dwellers when they're at risk. Okay, and I'll show you on the next slide where that is. And there are specific instructions of what to do, and it is not to go outside. The instructions for basement apartment dwellers are to go up, not out. Because if you go out, if your basement apartment is threatened, that means the water is pouring in from the street and it's not safe to go to the street. The safest thing to do is to go vertical. And then there's sort of the basic Ready New York instructions of what to do, keeping an AM/FM radio available, have a go bag ready to go, move to the higher floor, have those supplies ready to take with you. And please, 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 I know this is less of an issue for Staten Island, but to avoid any flooded subway stations. You know, maybe you're in Manhattan or Brooklyn trying to get back to Staten Island. You do not want to go into a flooded subway station to get to the ferry. That is the worst thing you could do. After a flood, again, I think there are probably a lot of experts on Staten Island about what to do, but please do not turn on the electricity if your panel has been compromised until it's cleared by an electrician. Do not put on, throw out fresh food and previously open medications that have come into contact with floodwaters. They are no good. The three basic steps for being prepared, not going into big detail, but they are just to make a plan, gather supplies, and stay informed. So we have a screenshot of the Ready New York plan on the left with a pen and a hand, a screenshot of a bunch of different types of supplies in the middle, and then on the right, a phone and a keyboard to help us stay informed. So we do like to drill into the Notify NYC. There are these two new alerts that just came online in the last few months. One is the basement alerts, and I modified my Notify NYC app so that I get those. And the other one is police advisories. So increasingly we find that we have to really keep track of, you know, just really what's happening around us, and activating those two new notification types on your Notify NYC app will help you stay abreast of the latest. And then lastly, if there is anyone in the COAD that is not subscribed, you can just point your smartphone at any one of those QR codes there and be connected right to the notify NYC sign up. And that is all she wrote. Thank you very much.